Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hawthorns. This is the place that Norwich City's championship campaign fully died. A defeat here today, 2-1 to the hands of West Brom, means that Norwich City can no longer break into the top six. In reality, that was probably something that we knew and anticipated and expected a little while ago, but now it is confirmed. The nail is been planted into the coffin. Norwich City will be playing championship football next year for sure. Let's look at the broader trend of statistics. 1 win in 10. Only Reading, who of course are fighting for their lives at the bottom of the table, have taken fewer points than Norwich City over that period. 12th in the league, a possibility still of not even finishing in the top half, let alone in the top six or the top two. And just a season that, I said this all last week, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind words and whatnot about the verdict last week. I don't think I'm emotionally going to go back to that place, but all of the stuff that I said last week is valid on merit, and of course you can view that. So I'm not going to go over old ground. I think I'll just try and talk about the football today, as well as a few bits and bobs around the game. So 4 changes for Norwich today. Sam Byram came in. Jakob Sorensen pushed up into midfield. Marquinhos and Crystal Solis came in as well. Onel Hernandez is injured, and actually in the first half Norwich looked more balanced. They looked more competitive. They were functional. They played with structure, and they looked pretty dangerous on the counter-attack, I felt. It was certainly, compared to the halves of football that we've seen in previous games, Swansea, Middlesbrough, QPR, could go on and on and on to the other 40. I jest. But no, I think it was okay, and I wouldn't really say that they were brilliant or that they were amazing, or that it was some kind of turning of the book and there was a freshness, but it was certainly better. And I think, given that so much of the conversations beforehand were about response and were about character and how they could kind of stand up to stuff, it was positive. And at half time it was 1-1. Obviously we'll get into the details of that in a moment, but I went in feeling, I don't know, encouraged is a bit strong, but certainly in a better mood than I think has been the case. I'm sure the away end did as well. Obviously, let's talk about the mechanics of that first half. Norwich score. It's a brilliant counter-attack, to be fair. Sorensen again breaks up the play. Gabriel Sara takes it on. Then he finds Giannoulis. It's a beautiful pass into Josh Sargent. And the touch is brilliant. Just lets it run across his body to be able to arrow it past the goalkeeper. And that kind of shift of power, I guess, onto his right to get the shot away is just superb. He squandered quite a big opportunity early on, Josh Sargent, and also had a header. And I don't know, I think you could visibly see the confidence get sapped out of him after those 2 situations. So for him to then score in that manner, and it was a really good, well-worked goal, actually, I think was positive and a really good construct. And actually, to be honest, if you look at, let me just do that, there we go. If you look at some of the best football that Norwich City have played under David Wagner, it's been when they're playing in transition, when they're playing on the counter-attack, when they're trying to exploit spaces, when they turn over the ball. And they missed opportunities as well when they turned it over to go and attack some spaces. Solis was really live. I think that's the best I've seen him play in an Norwich shirt for a long time. But they had purpose. They had an idea and a structure that they were working to, and looked okay. As I said, nothing more than that. They weren't earth-shatteringly good, and I wasn't sat there absolutely blown off my feet. But again, comparatively with what we've seen and what's gone before, it was better. Obviously, they take the lead. They should have had a penalty as well beforehand. Gabriel Sara gets just kind of takes the touch out of his feet. Ajayi makes contact, stands on his foot basically, and Sara kind of takes another step and then falls. And I think it's a penalty, by the way, all day long. I'm not going to argue that it isn't, but I think it is, and it should be a complete irrelevance. But I think the way that he's fallen has probably ensured that Bobby Madley doesn't give the penalty, if that makes sense. And we've had a few of those this season with Max Aarons where they've been stonewall and haven't been given. This was a penalty, and then obviously that gets compounded at the other end when there's a 50-50, but to be honest, I think Grant kicks Giannoulis, and that's given in West Brom's favour. A very bizarre decision. Connor Townsend, no qualms about the quality of the free kick, sticks it in the top far left corner. That's 1-1, but these are big moments in the game. And look, to be honest, to be frank, is that the reason why Norwich are 12th in the Championship? No, but of course it's the reason why. I'm sure David Wagner will point to it as a key momentum shift in this game, because until then I felt they managed this game okay. As I say, I'm not going anywhere further than okay, but again, I find myself probably sinking into the same narratives in the second half. The structure just dissipates. There's nothing about them. They're soft. I don't really understand at points what they're trying to do. And to be fair, that's been a case under 2 head coaches now. And I think actually when I kind of spoke last week, and I spoke about probably everything but the players really. So I think it is time to speak about this group. They are soft. There's clearly a mentality issue, because again, all West Brom had to do really was slip the gear into a higher gear, and just accelerate away and got a goal. And then from there, they were able to manage it. Alex Palmer's not really made a save in the second half, and the drop off is just astounding. And we've seen it so often from this group of Norwich City players this season, that meekness, that tameness. 50 Shades of Dross, I think I labelled it on Twitter, and that is it. It's varieties of the same thing, and you can have a positive first half like that, and everyone give people a lifeline, and people visibly see a response. But then again, when you have that second half where it just drops off a cliff and those performance levels just disappear, the structure goes away, the coaches have issues, that is where I think the real frustration sets in for people, because this is a group that should have been better than it was. It's proven that it should be better than it has been on occasion, and 2 coaches have tried and failed to get a tune out of this squad. And then just finally, before I kind of meander off into the distance, the final goal, really soft again. Marquinhos, who I'll come back to, gives the ball away, fails to foul Thomas Asante. I mean, don't give the ball away, but second, come on, you've got to foul him. You've got to foul him. It's. I know he's a young player. I know he's learning his trade, but it's obvious. Take his heels, rugby tackle him, jump on him, get him to the floor, whatever you have to do. Don't let him skip away. And he lets him skip away. And this is this softness that I keep coming back to with this Norwich City group, this kind of soft underbelly that we see, this individual mistakes that keep cropping up throughout this season that have made it so difficult to consume, but actually made it difficult to root for these Norwich players, to side with them. They're a difficult group of players to like at times, because again, maybe it's that gap between expectation and what we're actually seeing reality. But they're not as good as anyone thinks they are. Clearly, you don't need me to say that after 45 games of a championship season, and they're sat 12th in the table. I think, if I'm going to be brutally honest, that's probably a fair reflection of where they are. But anyway, Asante skips away from Marquinhos, who should foul him, fails to foul him. Maybe indicative of his whole loan spell. Asante then slips it to Townsend, ball across the face of the area. Jed Wallace then puts the ball into the back of the net. Jed Wallace, by the way, free transfer in the summer, far better than anything Norwich had from a creative point of view. They decided that he wasn't one that they wanted to pursue. My mind still boggles at that, if I'm completely honest, for a free transfer, given the means that they were working in. That was one that was very doable, and probably an indictment of their domestic recruitment over the last few years, if I'm being completely honest, because him, John Swift as well, who I'm sure people will chuck in, but I would push harder on Jed Wallace. I think just a player that I think would have added quality to Norwich City this year in an area where they've been desperately short of it. So that's maybe a personal moan out of the way. But yeah, I mean, from there, there's just nothing about this Norwich group really in terms of character. And maybe that's reflective of the entire club. I don't know. That's a joke. But you just come away feeling shortchanged, disappointed, a little bit dejected. I'm probably at a stage now where I kind of expected it. I think once West Brom got back into the game, you expect Norwich to fold. You expect them to lose the game from the position that they did, and they did. So they were true to form in that way, which was disappointing. David Wagner tried to bring on 4 subs. To be honest, I felt that made Norwich City worse. Didn't help structurally. They went to a 4-4-2, didn't work. Just ineffective really in terms of their attacking play, and it gave West Brom probably greater control of the middle of the pitch, and giving up that space probably prevented the opportunities where they had so much success, because suddenly they were pushing players high and kind of taking the space that they wanted to go and then counter and attack in, and just unable to muster anything of any note really, toothless in the end. And West Brom were able to manage this game and see out pretty comfortably. And they, of course, still have a chance of finishing in the playoffs, finishing in the top 6. They head to Swansea on the final day. I don't think they'll get in. I think we'll be here next season. But, yeah, they've given it a go, at least. Marquinhos, I did say I'd speak about him. Really interesting decision from David Wagner to bring him in. He's obviously not been involved for the last two games, not even in the matchday squad, and then suddenly gets propelled in. I know Onel Hernandez is injured, but for all the talk of kind of change and shifting, I don't understand why then you don't look to John Rowe or even Adam Eder or someone who's going to be here next season. I think that's where I feel a little bit baffled. And I'm not being wise after the event. You can go and watch the team news video. Me and Paddy discussed it there, and just very bizarre decision, I felt, to bring in a player who, let's be frank, has offered very little since he arrived at Norwich City. He's young in his career. He may well go and be really successful, but this hasn't worked for either party. He just hasn't done much, has he? Let's be honest and blunt about it. So to bring him in felt odd, and then obviously you have the calamity with the second goal, and I feel for the lad a little bit because I think he's going to take a brunt of that. But actually, for me, it was a decision that Wagner and his coaching team made to bring them in. So for me, they should shoulder that responsibility because they got it wrong, I think, and it should have been John Rowe. And I know there's been some issues with fitness, but to be frank, they've got 2 games left. Let him have 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is, and then maybe bring Adam Eder on that side. And I know it hasn't even necessarily worked with strikers, but I just felt it wasn't maybe reading the room necessarily, and it wasn't a great decision to bring him back in. So that's where I am on Marquinhos. I don't want to pin this all on him. Bobby Madley as well, I've kind of touched upon. I felt he got both decisions wrong. I don't, in the end, feel that's why Norwich City have lost this game. I think you could largely point to their second half performance. They should have had a penalty, yes. It wasn't a foul for the free kick, yes, and maybe it would have ended a point. But I think West Brom would have raised their levels to score another goal if they needed to. And to be honest, it felt like they had gears to find if they needed to. So, yeah, disappointing. But what's the saying? You make your own luck. Norwich haven't made their luck this season. They've had 1 penalty all year, despite Dean Smith's letters to the various refereeing authorities. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Howard Webb will be getting a call. And whilst we're on David Wagner as well, I think it is interesting because there is a lot of discussion about him and his position and whether he's the right person to oversee this period of change that we're seeing. I obviously spoke about Stuart Webber and all the other stuff in the verdict last week, so I'd encourage you to go and watch that because I'm not going to go over that constantly between now and the end of the season. But David Wagner, I think, is a really interesting one. It's obviously 1 win in 10. I think it's alarming how quickly the bubble has burst under him. As I said earlier, I sometimes watch Norwich, quite often watch Norwich and wonder what the tactical approach is. That being said, he's got a group of players who are absolutely shot in terms of confidence, have no real mentality, and are, it's a tough group to manage. I think they've already got rid of 1 head coach. So I can understand the arguments that people are making in terms of, well, why don't they just, bin him off, for want of a better phrase, and kind of have a complete rebuild of the whole thing. But actually, and again, it's a very specific system that they're recruiting for, and that bodes problems as well, I think. So all of these factors are really, really interesting. I expect that debate to rumble on. But from my perspective, I think he will be here. So I think Norwich are all in, essentially. And if that goes wrong, then obviously that will get passed higher up the chain, I think, in terms of blame and in terms of criticism. So that's David Wagner. Let's speak about some of the stuff that happened at the end of the game. Norwich players went over to fans, as they do, to try and applaud. They were met with abuse, hand gestures, boos, all of which I can completely understand after this season. Of course, that being said, it's never nice to see anyone being abused, but those frustrations are, I think, reflective of this season and what this season has been, which is a complete and utter abject failure at all levels and all factions of the football club. Their team have lost again, 1 win in 10. You can understand their frustrations. And then, obviously, so David Wagner went over, was quickly told where to go, I think, and so went. Then the players were subjected to it. And then you had a very interesting / bizarre situation where first team coach Andy Hughes went over to speak about the fans. And he went over and there was obviously some words exchanged and I think some frustration shown towards him. I wasn't in the away end, so I can't comment on that. I was sat where I'm stood here, really. So I could only kind of see it play out as it was playing out. Just as me and Chris Gorham were stood just there in that technical area, waiting for Dimi Yanulis to come out and speak. Andy Hughes actually came up to us and just kind of wanted to clarify, I think, that it was, he just wanted to speak to fans and make sure they were all right and that he understood their frustrations and that they were disappointed and that he's disappointed. And I think he was quite keen maybe to clarify that he wasn't going over there to try and provoke and look, I'm just messaging. So it's not necessarily my opinion. Like I said, I wasn't there, so I can't put an opinion on it. I can only tell you what he said to us. The optics aren't good. I think that, you don't have to say that. And I think when the club is in the position it's in and the state it's in, that doesn't help. But I think Andy Hughes was trying to get across to me and Chris that he cares, and that's what that conversation was about. He cares about the fans. He said to me, I heard it with my own ears. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but they turn up every week in great numbers. I wanted to make sure they were all right. I wanted to try and listen to them, to speak to them. And look, like I say, I wasn't there. I'm just telling you the account that I was given. So, make of that what you will. But Andy Hughes, from my very brief experience, I don't know him that well, but I've always found him to be quite genuine. I know there's obviously a bit of history there in terms of the player, but it just doesn't help, does it, I think? And I understand why maybe you'd want to go and reason with fans. But again, after the frustrations of the season and the frustrations of that performance, there you go. So just not a nice situation in general. And I'm not attributing blame to Andy Hughes because his intentions may well have been good. But like I say, it's the optics of it and it's the feeling of it all. And that's what's frustrating. So, I'm just telling you what Andy Hughes said to me and Chris Gorham, which was that he cares and that he wanted just to make sure that the fans are all right. So, I can understand, obviously, the frustration on the other side. And I'm sure other people have other accounts of that as well. But, I'm just a messenger, so don't shoot me. Plenty more analysis, plenty more reaction over at Pinken.com and the Pinken Plus app. That's Norwich City's away campaign done. I'll leave you with this stat. I laugh, but I feel like if I don't laugh, then this is going to be pretty grim. Norwich have now lost 17 league games this season. That is the most they've lost outside of the top flight since the 2008-2009 season when they were relegated to League One. So there we go. That is, tough old season, but we're done on the road. Obviously, Norwich will be at Carrow Road for the Temi Pukki farewell party on Bank Holiday Monday against Blackpool, already relegated Blackpool. I'm intrigued to see what happens there. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching, not just today, but across this season. For all the away games, we've got there in the end. So, there we go. Thank you very much for watching. See you again very soon.